kids, in maths we have been doing chapter 3 addition, and from question number 1 to 9 word problems we have done in our notebook already. Today we are going to do question number 10, 11 and 12. So we have to copy down the questions in our notebook. Question number 10. In a state there are 574 primary schools, 178 secondary schools and 367 senior secondary schools. How many schools are there in that state? There is a state like Uttar Pradesh is a state. We live in Uttar Pradesh. ऐसे ही एक state है जहाँ पर 574 primary schools हैं. Primary schools are the schools till class 5th. 178 secondary schools हैं till class 8th. These schools are running. And 367 senior secondary schools till class 12th. How many schools are there in that state? You have to tell the total number of states. So how you are going to do that? By adding all three kinds of schools. No? So we have been given the number of schools. We have to write the statements as number of primary schools, number of secondary schools. Three things are given to us. Number of primary schools, number of secondary schools and number of senior secondary schools. So write down solution. Number of primary schools 574. Number of senior secondary schools 367. And number of secondary schools 178. These three things are given to us. And we have to find the total number of schools. Total number of schools we will get after adding these three numbers. Add them and find out the sum. That will be your answer. And for the final answer you will write the statement. Instead of how many you have to write your answer. Dash schools are there in that state. In every question, the last line, how many schools, how many trees, how many students. This question can make a statement for your final answer. You don't need to write down from your own side. It is already given in the question. Instead of how many, just write down your final answer. So dash schools are there in that state. Write down. Then question number 11. At a fair means mela. Fair means mela. An ice cream parlor sold 378 ice cream cones on the first day, 185 on the second day and 367 on third day. How many ice cream cones were sold during these 3 days? एक मेला है जहाँ पर एक ice cream shop है, ice cream parlor है और वहाँ पे 3 days उन्होंने ice cream sell की हैं. On first day, they sold 378 ice cream cones. On second day, they sold 185 ice cream cones. And on third day, they sold 367 ice cream cones. You have to tell the total number of ice cream cones they have sold in these 3 days. So write down solution and what we have been given. Number of ice cream cones that were sold on first, second and third day. So we can just write number of cones sold on first day because we know these are ice cream cones. So the question में ही है. Number of cones sold on second day. Number of cones sold on third day. Write down their numbers. First day 378. Second day 185 cones and third day 367 cones. We have to find the total number of cones that were sold. That we will get after adding these three. Do the addition. And for the final answer, take the last line of the question. How many ice cream cones were sold during these 3 days? Instead of this how many, write down your final answer. Dash ice cream cones were sold during these 3 days. Answer here. Question number 12. In a library, there are 281 books in Hindi, 454 books in English and 279 books in maths. How many books are there in the library? Library is a room full of books. तो वहाँ पर 281 books हिंदी में है, 454 books English में है और 279 बुक मैथ्स की हैं, तो आपको टोटल नंबर ऑफ बुक्स बताना है. You have been given number of books. So write down solution. Number of books in Hindi, number of books in English, and number of books in maths. Hindi books you have 281, English books you have 454, and maths book you have 279. And what you have to find out? Total number of books that you will get after adding these three. And for the final statement you have to write, instead of this, how many dash books are there in the library. These three questions we have to do today in our maths notebook.